make sure this thing is actually picked up. There's a few people said they had a problem seeing it last week. Okay. Alright. It's working now. Okay. Good morning. As people are coming on, if you don't mind, share it so that everybody else can see it. Anybody that hasn't liked the page will only see it because of your share. So yeah. Alright. So this morning, I want to talk to you. Morning. I don't know who the heart was from, but good morning. Good morning. So this morning, I want to talk about. I shared a picture yesterday, and I thought it was kind of catchy. Milk and honey. And I put on it, you know, just the question on side the picture. The text on it said, "What if the promise of God doesn't look like what you imagined?" And I'll ask it again. What if the promise of God doesn't look like what you imagined? And the base scripture for my text is, you know, and if you've been in church for you know any amount of time, or if you went to Sunday school, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. So basically, in the book of Exodus, when God calls Moses, he continues to repeat it on and on and on, you know, throughout their journey. But he tells him in Exodus chapter 3 and verse 8, down towards the end of the verse, that I'm going to take them, you know, talking about the children of Israel, out of Egypt. I'm going to deliver them from captivity, and I'm going to take them into a large land, and an exceedingly good land, and a land flowing with milk and with honey. And for the course of their journey from out of Egypt, how God delivers them, and you know he you know is constantly moving for them, and they're following him, and he's constantly reminding them, you know, that I'm taking you into a land flowing with milk and with honey. And see, that's a promise of God. He promised it to Abraham. You know, he promised it to the fathers that it was going to be a good land, and he continues to tell them it's going to be a land flowing with milk and with honey. And I'm sure that when they were thinking milk and honey, you know, and I could be wrong, but you know, I'm the way that their mentality was. I'm gonna get ahead of myself if I don't go back. I think that often, like their story, like how God delivered them. You know, they thought they were forsaken. They were just in captivity, and they were in captivity in Egypt for years and years. And then when God burst onto the scene, especially with Moses, he speaks to him out of a burning bush, and then he tells him to throw his rod on the ground, and it turns into a serpent. He picks it up, and you know it turns back into a rod. And then he tells Moses, stick your hand into your cloak, and when he sticks it in there and he pulls it out, it's leprous, and when he puts it back in, it's healed. And then he goes to Pharaoh, and like the way that God delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, there was, you know, miracle after miracle. I mean, the river turned into blood, all the plagues, and how that, you know, God just did the miraculous for them. When they finally got to the Red Sea, and it split for them, and then when Pharaoh's army got into the middle of it, it shut back down on them. And then when they get to the other side, into the wilderness, the bitter waters turn sweet, the quail and the manna and the water from a rock, and literally the ground swallowing up the people that, you know, and then the great victories that they had in the wilderness. Like the way that God moved was miraculous. And I think a lot of times we do a really good job of preaching that, like, you know, the God of the miracles, and that's great. But I believe there's some seasons that God will purposely bring you to, that he not that he can't do miracles, but there's a season to where he does them as needed, because he's brought you into a promise to where he wants to take you into a deeper level of intimacy, a deeper level of faith. And I know that this is not popular teaching or popular preaching, but you know, I think it's true, because he wants to get you to a place to where, like with the children of Israel, what happened is they got so used to the quail and the manna, right? God was literally, every morning there was quail and manna on the ground, and every evening there was quail and manna. And then when they, after, you know, 40 years in the desert and walking around, they go in, because of complaining, they go into this land, and all of a sudden in Joshua 5:16, God brings them, or 5:12 rather, sorry. God brings them into their promised land. He crosses them over the Jordan and he brings them into the land that he had promised that they had been walking towards. And it says that the manna ceased in verse 12. After the people ate of the good of the land, that the manna stopped. And I think that, that shows that there's a progression in your walk with God. Because, see, it doesn't take a whole lot of faith to trust God from morning to evening, right? To trust him for the quail and the manna on the ground in the morning, and then, the quail and the manna on the ground in the evening. And see, so these people were a lot like us. When we first get saved, God, saved our lives. He took us from something that we were, he literally made us a new creature. He saved us, transformed us, renewed our minds, and we are a new creature. And then oftentimes what we call the honeymoon period with the Lord is that, you'll just see God move in mighty ways. And in seasons of your life, you'll see him move in the miraculous. And, and he can do that and he's powerful. But I believe that there is also seasons that he brings you to and he'll show you his promise. And it's not the flash and it's not the big and it's not the miraculous, but rather it's just the everyday, just normal, what looks like work kind of miracle. And I believe that that's where the children of Israel is. And that's what I want to talk to you about this morning. And I hope that you get where I'm going, and I'm not confusing you, but I'm just so excited. I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. But what if the promise of God doesn't look like what you imagine? And for the children of Israel, they hear this. And there's not a whole lot of context, of how they viewed the land, because when they sent spies into the land to view it, and when Moses did it, that only 2 of them came back and gave a good report. But then when they sent the 2 in, then Joshua decided we're going in to take this land regardless. So I'd say when they finally got over there, they were probably kind of gun shy, kind of skittish to say anything negative or voice any kind of opinion at all, because a whole generation was just wiped out for complaining, right? But I can also imagine just that their thoughts, like hearing that milk and honey, a land flowing with milk and honey. I can imagine, if you put yourself in the story, in their situation, how that they would feel when they get there, and it's not what they imagined in their mind. Because like for us, if we were to imagine, somebody was to tell us a land flowing with milk and honey, we would see jugs of milk and jars of honey, and some of us that are that are kind of artsy would probably see honeycombs or something like that would just look prettier. But really, when you step back and you think about it, God was telling them this land is going to be flowing with cows and flowing with bees. So what he was saying is this next season it's going to stink and it's going to sting, but nonetheless it's a land flowing with milk and with honey. It's still a good land. It's still a land that's going to sustain you, that's going to provide for you. It's still miraculous. It's still exceedingly wonderful and large. It's great for you. But cows stink and bees sting, right? And so if he would have told them that, they probably wouldn't have wanted to go in and inhabit it. They probably wouldn't have held on to that throughout the years. They probably wouldn't have passed that kind of thing on. But when he told them milk and honey, those are the finished product of the thing, the promise that he was going to give them. The milk and the honey was the finished product. But in order to get that, when you get into this season, there's going to be work. You see where I'm going? I believe that there is a season that maybe this is not for everybody. Maybe this is just for a few people, and I hope that you listen anyways, because eventually I believe you'll get to a season like this to where God will take you out of the season of just everything being miraculous, and then he's basically telling you settle in and get to work, because there is a land that I'm taking you into that's flowing with milk and honey. There's provision everywhere, but you're gonna have to work. There's provision everywhere, but you're going to have to work. See, I think we do a good job of really preaching the miraculous and really preaching prosperity. And I believe in that. I do. I believe that God is that God. But I believe that there's also this flip side that I think that sometimes the universal church, we do a poor job, I think, of fixing people's perspective in seasons of like this, to where God is, the promise of God is not matching up with what you had imagined. And I think we do a poor job of kind of fixing people's gaze where it needs to be. Sometimes people will come and they'll, if you counsel anybody, or you're close to anybody, or you mentor or disciple anybody, you'll know when they're in a season to where, like, God has brought you to where you are absolutely 100% where you're supposed to be in your life. Yet they'll come to you and they'll ask you, well, this doesn't feel good and this hurts and this, but and you're just like, yes, but the finished product, like, this is why you're here. And see, I think that we do a poor job of fixing people's perspective beforehand, before they get into that. And see, that's what I kind of want to do for you today, is I want to encourage you that if it doesn't look like what you imagine, it's still a promise of God. It's still milk, it's still honey, it's still provision, it's still miraculous. And you say, well, how? What does that look like in my life? You're talking about, these people were thousands of years ago. This looks like in your life going from, yes, God can give you, you can wake up and you can have a check in the mail this morning that cancels all your debt, pays all your bills, to where you never have another need in your life. And God can do that. I believe that. But it's also a miracle that you could get up and go to the same job for 15 years without being laid off, without missing a paycheck, without having to worry about whether or not you're going to have it the next day. That is a miracle. That's milk. That's honey. God can you can have a new car. I believe by all means He can bless you with a new car. But it is also a miracle, milk and honey, that you've had the same car for 10 years and have not had a major issue. The only thing you've had to do is change the oil and the tires. That is milk. That is honey. I believe that it is also a miracle in milk and honey for you to live in the same house and not have any problems. Your roof's not leaking and everything is just fine. When other people, maybe in newer houses or older houses, are having to replace this or having to replace that, or they're having problems with their HOA or their mortgage or whatever it is, like, that is milk. That is honey. That is a provision that I believe God is bringing people into, and I believe that I really needed to share this morning, that somebody needed to know that the stuff that you're going through, that just seems normal, that seems common, that seems mundane, is just as much a miracle of God, just as much the miraculous, the milk and the honey. You just need to see it that way, because sometimes it's not always going to be the big and the miraculous. Like, yes, like when you follow this story, God still did miracles. He still brought down walls of Jericho flat. The sun still stood still, but it was an as needed basis. He brought them into a good land and basically turned them loose and said, go work, go fight. And then when they needed a miracle, God was still on time. I believe that is the kind of place that God has taken His believers into today, that He's saying, go in, go work. Go in, go fight. And when you need me, when you need this miraculous, the God that I was for the people in the wilderness, I will be for you again, and I will be on time. But this is a good land. This is a land flowing with milk and honey. I just need you to fix your perspective on it. So whoever you are today, maybe a miraculous, maybe everyday miracles are also some other things, like, maybe you didn't want to go to Walmart, but you get there and you meet somebody that's a connection for a lifetime. Like the children of Israel when they sent spies in. I'm sure that they did not want to get found out by the people of Jericho and end up having to hide. But when they hid, they ended up meeting a woman, a harlot named Rahab, that was in the genealogy of Jesus. So there was an ordained connection there. Maybe you didn't want to go to that doctor's office, but you meet somebody, or you hear a bit of news or something that turns you on to something that maybe you would have never done before. Maybe you maybe you get an idea from looking at something on a wall or a magazine because you got some free time sitting there that just opens up your the part of your business that had been dead, that you get an idea that sparks something. Maybe it's those things, it's the interruptions, it's the things that we don't want to look at, the things that maybe they stink or they sting. This doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel good, but nonetheless, it is a miracle. It is milk, it is honey, it is the promise of God, maybe not the way you imagined. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope it did. That's all I had this morning. I just wanted to kind of share this. I feel like I needed to. I don't know who it was for. So if you would, do me a favor, like this video, share this video, tag somebody in it that you know, maybe you're discipling, maybe you're a prayer partner with somebody, that they're going through a season like this to where God was just moving so big, and sometimes it can be a bit depressing when you're watching God move in such miraculous ways, and then all of a sudden He brings you into a place to where it's just like, all right, now work, now do. And it can be a bit depressing. It can be a bit overwhelming because like it looks like just this daunting task of and you're wondering where the God that was walking with you is now. Share this with them. I believe that somebody needs encouraged by this. They need their perspective changed and shown that that same God is still working this miracle, instead of it being right here, right now. He's provided for me for the next lifetime, the next generation, the next generation, the next generation. I just have to work, and because you never know, like I taught last week, you never know, why God has you there, why God has done that, what that job is going to produce for you, what that car is for you, what that doctor's appointment is for you, what that trip to Walmart is for you, whatever it is. Like, it's milk and it's honey. We just have to get our perspective right on the matter. So if you would, share this video for me, like our Facebook page, our Instagram page, our YouTube channel, and I'm going to pray for everybody, and we will go to church. If everybody would, remember Shonda, she's if anybody knows her, she's kind of allergic to a lot, and she's I guess the bugs down here in the south think that she tastes really good, so she's got bit a few different times, and just trying to battle some swelling and get it all under control. It's just really frustrating. I don't personally know the struggle, because I guess I don't taste very good to bugs. But if you would remember her in prayer, I know it's frustrating, just wear that on her foot and on her eye. So everybody remember her in prayer. And so go somewhere today, encourage somebody in the Lord, be encouraged in the Lord. I'm gonna pray for you, and we'll get going. God, thank you for today. Thank you for all you've given us, all you've done for us. God, I thank you, Lord God, for your word. God, I thank you for each and every person that's going to see this video. I pray it touches them in a mighty way. God, that you would encourage them, that you would fix their perspective. God, that you would show them that you are still with them. God, that you still love them, that you are still providing for them, that you are still that God. God, and you would just show them, Lord God, what their milk and what their honey is in their life. God, I pray for everyone as they go to their church today, God. God, that you would just meet us in your house. God, that you would move in a mighty way as only you can. God, that we come, we would love on you. God, that you would just meet us there and inhabit the praises of your people. God, I ask right now that you would touch every person in need, whatever need it is, God, whether it's healing, God, no matter what it is, God, I pray that you would meet their needs. God, as only you can do, God, that you would touch people that need healing, touch people that need you in relationships, in their marriages, touch people that need you in their finances, in their relationships with their kids, God, touch people that need you on their workplaces, God. God, I ask that you would touch Shonda, that you would bring healing to her, God. God, relieve her, God, of these bug bites, God, and give her relief, Lord. God, I thank you for everything you've done. God, bless us today in Jesus' name. Amen. Love you guys. See you next week.